The PlayStation 1 wasn't just a console, it was the moment gaming grew up. It gave us worlds we'd never seen before, stories that stuck with us for life, and some of the most creative games ever made. So today, I thought we'd do something a little different. We're going one game for every single letter of the alphabet. Some are obvious legends, others are hidden gems you might have forgotten. Ape Escape wasn't just another platformer. It was the game that proved the PlayStation's brand new DualShock controller was more than just a marketing gimmick. Released in 1999, it turned the platforming formula upside down by making the right analog stick essential for gameplay. Your mission? Track down a bunch of mischievous, time-traveling monkeys wearing mind control helmets. But catching them wasn't as simple as jumping on their heads. You had to master a variety of gadgets, each with its own clever control scheme. One moment you're swinging a stun club, the next you're tossing a hula hoop to dash forward, or piloting a tiny RC car to trigger distance switches. The variety kept every stage fresh, with environments ranging from futuristic cities to prehistoric jungles. The soundtrack? Pure late 90s energy, the kind that sticks in your head for days. I still remember trying to catch that one monkey in the snowy level. It took me way too long, but when I finally did, it felt like winning the Olympics. Ape Escape didn't just create a fun adventure, it made the DualShock feel essential and set the tone for how we'd play 3D games for years to come. Breath of Fire 4 wasn't just another JRPG on the PlayStation. It was a masterclass in blending a deep, emotional story with a stunning, hand-drawn art style. Released in 2000 on the PS1, it carried the legacy of Capcom's beloved RPG series, but stood out with its Asian-inspired setting and atmosphere. The story follows Ryu, a wanderer with the power to transform into dragons, and Nina, a winged princess, as they journey through lands torn apart by political conflict and war. The visuals combine beautifully animated 2D sprites with richly detailed 3D environments, giving the game a timeless look. Combat was turn-based, but offered tactical depth through its combo system, where chaining abilities between characters created devastating attacks. The soundtrack was equally memorable, mixing traditional Japanese instrumentation with emotional, sweeping melodies. Themes of fate, loyalty, and sacrifice ran deep, giving weight to every moment. Breath of Fire 4 remains one of the most soulful RPGs on the PS1, a perfect blend of artistry, storytelling, and classic gameplay. Castlevania Symphony of the Night didn't just redefine the Castlevania series, it helped shape what we now call the Metroidvania genre. Released in 1997 on the PS1, it broke away from the linear stage design of previous games and gave players a massive, interconnected castle to explore at their own pace. You played as Alucard, the half-vampire son of Dracula, equipped with a growing arsenal of weapons, spells, and relics that unlocked new areas as you progressed. The atmosphere was pure gothic perfection, towering marble halls, eerie catacombs, and moonlit courtyards. The haunting soundtrack is still unmatched, and the twist of the inverted castle doubled the adventure, blowing players' minds back in the day. I still remember when it happened for me. I had to pause the game, just staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. Symphony of the Night wasn't just a great game on the PS1, it was a masterpiece that changed how I saw exploration in gaming forever. Dino Crisis 2 took the survival horror roots of the first game and evolved them into a high-octane action experience. Released in 2000 on the PS1 by Capcom, it traded slow, suspenseful pacing for fast, arcade-style dinosaur combat. Players alternated between the returning Regina and newcomer Dylan, navigating through dense jungles, research facilities, and underwater bases, all swarming with prehistoric predators. The gameplay was built around speed and efficiency, rewarding players with points for chaining kills, which could be spent on new weapons and upgrades. The dinosaurs were more aggressive than ever. Raptors lunged from foliage, pteranodons attacked from above, and massive T-Rex encounters kept the tension high. Each environment was richly detailed, blending tropical beauty with constant danger, and the pacing left almost no downtime between encounters. The result was an intense, replayable adventure that stood apart from its predecessor, proving that Dino Crisis 2 could deliver thrills without sacrificing depth.
Called Einhänder.
Einhänder was Square's bold leap into the shoot-'em-up genre, and it remains one of the most visually striking and mechanically polished games on the PS1. Released in 1997, it traded the company's RPG roots for high-speed, side-scrolling action with a sleek cyberpunk aesthetic. Players piloted an advanced fighter craft, armed with a unique weapon system that allowed you to collect and swap enemy weapons on the fly. The gameplay demanded precision. Every enemy wave, every boss attack pattern had to be learned and mastered. What set Einhänder apart was its presentation: smooth 3D graphics, dynamic camera angles that shifted during key moments, and a pounding techno soundtrack that perfectly matched the futuristic tone. The game's difficulty was unforgiving, but fair, rewarding skill and memorization in true arcade fashion. Even decades later, Einhänder stands as one of the most ambitious and stylish shooters of its era, proving that Square could master more than just RPGs. Final Fantasy IX was Square's love letter to the series' roots, a return to fantasy kingdoms, crystal lore, and whimsical charm after the futuristic worlds of its predecessors. Released in 2000 on the PS1, it followed Zidane, a roguish thief with a tale, and a colorful cast of companions on a journey that balanced humor, romance, and moments of deep emotion. The world of Gaia was a masterpiece. Bustling cities, enchanted forests, and majestic airships drifting through the clouds. The active time battle system was refined to perfection, and the ability learning mechanic encouraged experimenting with equipment to unlock new skills. But it was the story that truly stuck with me. Themes of identity, mortality, and what it means to live gave the adventure real weight. I still remember reaching the ending and just sitting there, controller in hand, letting the credits roll as Uematsu's final track played. It felt like saying goodbye to a group of friends I'd traveled with for weeks. Final Fantasy IX isn't just a classic, it's one of the most heartfelt journeys on the PS1. Gran Turismo 2 expanded everything that made the original a hit, cementing its place as the definitive racing simulator on the PS1. Released in 1999, it offered an unprecedented roster of over 600 cars and dozens of tracks, ranging from real-world circuits to fictional street courses. The game's physics engine was a leap forward, delivering a realistic sense of weight, speed, and grip that was unmatched at the time. Career mode allowed players to buy, tune, and race their dream cars, progressing through licenses and competitions that tested both skill and patience. The attention to detail was staggering. Every vehicle handled differently, and the variety of manufacturers, from everyday compacts to high-end supercars, gave the game incredible depth. Visually, it pushed the PS1 to its limits, and the smooth, immersive soundtrack made each race even more engaging. Gran Turismo 2 wasn't just a game, it was an entire driving experience, setting a standard that racing sims still chase today. Heart of Darkness was a cinematic platformer that felt years ahead of its time on the PS1. Released in 1998, it told the tale of Andy, a young boy on a quest to rescue his dog, Whiskey, from shadowy creatures in a surreal, alien world. The game combined fluid, hand-animated cutscenes with challenging, puzzle-driven gameplay reminiscent of titles like Another World and Flashback. Each environment was richly crafted, from eerie caverns to lush forests, and packed with hazards that demanded precision timing and problem-solving. Deaths were frequent and often brutal, but they served as quick lessons for mastering each obstacle. The soundtrack, composed by Bruce Broughton, gave the adventure an almost movie-like atmosphere, adding emotional weight to Andy's perilous journey. Heart of Darkness stood out on the PS1 for its blend of artistry, challenge, and immersive presentation, remaining a cult classic for players who experienced its dark yet magical world. Intelligent Qube was one of the most unique puzzle games on the PS1, blending minimalist visuals with tense, almost hypnotic gameplay. Released in 1997, it placed players on a massive floating platform made of cubes, where the goal was to clear specific marked blocks before they reached the edge. Sounds simple, until the platform starts shrinking and the cubes roll toward you faster and faster. The game's genius was in its balance between strategy and reflexes. One wrong move could trap you, while a perfectly timed sequence could clear the stage with style. Its dark, atmospheric presentation, from the stark environments to the haunting orchestral soundtrack, gave it a dramatic, almost surreal tone. Intelligent Qube was deceptively addictive, pushing you to chase higher scores and more efficient clears. Even today, its design feels fresh, proving that sometimes the most stripped-down concepts can deliver the most intense experiences.
Jumping Flash!
Jumping Flash was a true pioneer of 3D platforming on the PS1, arriving in 1995 when the genre was still figuring out its identity. You played as Robert, a mechanical rabbit on a mission to stop the eccentric villain, Baron Aloha, from stealing pieces of entire worlds. What made it stand out was its unique first-person perspective, combined with a triple jump mechanic that let you soar high above colorful, floating stages. The game cleverly tilted the camera downward mid-jump, making landings precise, something that still feels satisfying today. The environments were playful and varied, from grassy sky islands to futuristic space bases. I still remember the first time I leapt so high I could see the entire map beneath me. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced in a platformer. Jumping Flash might look simple now, but back then, it felt like stepping into the future of gaming. Klonoa Door to Phantomile was a heartfelt blend of platforming and storytelling that left a lasting impact on the PS1. Released in 1997 by Namco, it followed the journey of Klonoa and his friend Qube as they set out to save the dream world of Phantomile from a looming darkness. The game's 2.5D design, side-scrolling gameplay within fully 3D environments, gave it a distinctive visual style, allowing for clever level layouts that twisted and curved in unexpected ways. The controls were tight and intuitive, with Klonoa's signature wind bullet mechanic letting players grab enemies and use them to reach higher platforms or solve puzzles. What truly set Klonoa apart was its emotional storytelling. It began as a light-hearted adventure, but gradually revealed a surprisingly bittersweet tone, culminating in an ending that caught many players off guard. With its vibrant art, imaginative world design, and touching narrative, Klonoa Door to Phantomile remains a beloved cult classic on the PS1.
The old hunger has left me. I have no desire for blood.
Legacy of Kain was one of the most atmospheric and ambitious action-adventure games on the PS1. Released in 1999, it put you in the role of Raziel, a fallen vampire turned soul-devouring wraith on a quest for vengeance against his former master Kain. The game's world was a dark, gothic masterpiece, decaying cities, twisted cathedrals, and desolate wastelands, all interconnected in a way that encouraged exploration. Its signature mechanic, shifting between the material and spectral realms, added depth to puzzles and platforming, creating a haunting sense of duality. The voice acting was on another level for the time, delivering sharp Shakespearean dialogue that made every cutscene feel important. I still remember renting this game without knowing much about it and being completely hooked by the opening cinematic. It felt like I had just stepped into a playable dark fantasy novel. The combination of atmosphere, freedom, and storytelling made Soul Reaver an experience I still think about decades later. Metal Gear Solid wasn't just a game. It was a cinematic revolution on the PS1. Released in 1998, it followed Solid Snake as he infiltrated Shadow Moses Island to stop a nuclear threat, blending stealth gameplay with a gripping, espionage-driven narrative. It broke boundaries with its attention to detail, guards reacting to footprints, enemies hearing your footsteps, and boss fights that were as creative as they were challenging. The storytelling was unmatched, with fully voiced cutscenes that felt straight out of a Hollywood thriller. The music, the pacing, the twists, everything worked together to pull you into Snake's world. I still remember facing Psycho Mantis for the first time when the game made me switch controller ports to win. I actually sat there laughing in disbelief at how brilliant it was. Metal Gear Solid didn't just raise the bar for stealth games, it redefined what video games could be. Need for Speed took the thrill of street racing on the PS1 and raised the tension with a risk-reward system that made every race matter. Released in 1999, it delivered intense police chases, high-speed duels, and the unforgettable high-stakes mode, where losing meant handing over your prized car. The roster of vehicles was pure late 90s dream material, from exotic supercars to sleek performance machines, each with unique handling. The police AI was aggressive, forcing you to dodge roadblocks, spike strips, and pit maneuvers. I still remember the crushing feeling of losing my favorite car after a bad race. It stung, but it made every victory that much sweeter. The mix of adrenaline, strategy, and consequence made high stakes one of the most exhilarating racing experiences on the PS1, and it set the stage for the more narrative-driven entries in the series that followed. Oddworld Abe's Oddysee was one of the most imaginative and atmospheric platformers on the PS1. Released in 1997, it told the story of Abe, a humble Mudokon slave who discovers that his employer, Rupture Farms, plans to turn his people into food products. Determined to escape and rescue his fellow workers, Abe embarks on a dangerous journey filled with environmental puzzles, hostile creatures, and deadly traps. The game stood out for its richly detailed pre-rendered backgrounds and fluid animations, giving Oddworld a cinematic quality rarely seen at the time. Its innovative GameSpeak system allowed Abe to communicate with other Mudokons, guiding them to safety, or into peril if you weren't careful. Balancing dark humor with a strong moral undertone, Abe's Oddysee delivered a challenging yet rewarding experience, earning its place as a standout title on the PS1. Parasite Eve was Square's bold experiment, a unique blend of cinematic horror and RPG mechanics that felt unlike anything else on the PS1. Released in 1998, it followed NYPD officer Aya Brea through 6 tense days in New York City as she uncovered the terrifying truth behind a string of spontaneous combustions linked to the mysterious Eve. The combat mixed real-time movement with turn-based commands, letting you dodge attacks while waiting for your AT gauge to fill. The atmosphere was thick, deserted streets, haunting music, and that constant feeling that danger could strike at any moment. I still remember walking into Carnegie Hall during the opening scene and feeling a mix of awe and dread. It hooked me instantly. The story, the pacing, and the way it blended RPG progression with survival horror tension made Parasite Eve a game I couldn't put down, and one I still think about whenever someone asks me for a hidden gem on the PS1. Quake II brought fast-paced, adrenaline-fueled first-person shooting to the PS1, delivering one of the most intense action experiences of its time. Released in 1999, it was a console adaptation of ID Software's acclaimed PC title, reworked to fit the hardware while keeping the core gameplay intact. Players stepped into the role of a lone marine in a desperate mission to stop the alien Strogg invasion, blasting through industrial complexes, alien cities, and heavily fortified bases. The game retained its signature speed and precision gunplay, complemented by a gritty, metallic art style that made every environment feel hostile. Weapons ranged from the dependable blaster to devastating rocket launchers, each offering satisfying feedback. Despite hardware limitations, the PS1 version captured the essence of the original and even included split-screen multiplayer for chaotic local matches. Quake II was pure action, a relentless test of reflexes that stood out in the console's FPS lineup. Resident Evil 2 wasn't just a sequel, it was a defining moment for survival horror on the PS1. Released in 1998, it put players in the shoes of rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy and college student Claire Redfield as they tried to survive the zombie-infested streets of Raccoon City. The game perfected the formula of exploration, puzzle solving, and tense combat, with every encounter feeling dangerous. The pre-rendered backgrounds gave the city a gritty, cinematic look, while the fixed camera angles built constant suspense. What truly set it apart was the zapping system, letting you play 2 interwoven campaigns where your actions in one affected the other. I still remember the first time a licker crawled across the police station ceiling. I froze, not sure whether to run or fight. That single moment sold me on the idea that Resident Evil 2 wasn't just a game, it was an experience that could genuinely scare you even after you thought you were ready. Silent Hill redefined psychological horror on the PS1, trading cheap jump scares for a deeply unsettling atmosphere. Released in 1999 by Konami, it followed Harry Mason as he searched for his missing daughter in the fog-shrouded town of Silent Hill. The game's now iconic fog wasn't just a stylistic choice, it masked hardware limitations while creating an oppressive sense of isolation. Distorted radio static warned of nearby creatures, while the shifting between the real world and a nightmarish, rust-covered alternate dimension kept players constantly on edge. Combat was intentionally clumsy, making every encounter tense and survival feel hard-earned. Its haunting soundtrack and disturbing sound design elevated the fear factor, while its cryptic, layered story encouraged multiple playthroughs to uncover the truth. Silent Hill wasn't just a horror game, it was an unsettling journey that lingered long after the console was turned off. Tekken 3 was the peak of arcade fighting on the PS1, a game that defined countless late-night tournaments with friends. Released in 1998, it introduced smoother animations, faster gameplay, and a roster packed with both returning icons like Paul Phoenix and Nina Williams, and newcomers like Jin Kazama and Hwoarang. The sidestep mechanic added a new layer of depth, making fights feel more dynamic than ever. The stages were vibrant and varied, each with its own personality, from urban rooftops to serene temples. What made Tekken 3 unforgettable was how easy it was to pick up while still offering endless mastery for dedicated players. I still remember the rush of clutching a win with just a sliver of health left, pulling off that last combo, and hearing everyone in the room lose their minds. For many, including me, Tekken 3 wasn't just a fighting game. It was the multiplayer heart of the PS1 era. Ultimate Fighting Championship brought the raw intensity of mixed martial arts to the PS1, offering a level of realism rarely seen in fighting games of its time. Released in 2000, it featured licensed fighters from the UFC roster, each representing distinct disciplines like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and kickboxing. The gameplay focused heavily on timing, positioning, and submissions rather than flashy combos, making matches feel strategic and unpredictable. Fights could end in seconds with a well-timed chokehold or knockout, keeping the tension high from start to finish. The arenas were minimalistic but authentic, capturing the gritty atmosphere of early MMA events. While it didn't have the fast, arcade-style appeal of other fighters on the console, Ultimate Fighting Championship carved out its niche as a pure simulation for fans of the sport. Vagrant Story was one of the most ambitious and atmospheric RPGs ever released on the PS1. Launched in 2000 by Square, it put you in the role of Ashley Riot, a risk-breaker investigating political conspiracies and supernatural forces within the cursed city of Leamon. The game's visuals were breathtaking for the era, with detailed environments, expressive character models, and seamless transitions between gameplay and cutscenes. Combat was deep and methodical, letting you target specific body parts, chain attacks, and fine-tune your weapons through an intricate customization system. The tone was dark and mature, supported by Hitoshi Sakimoto's haunting soundtrack. I still remember pausing mid-game just to admire the Gothic architecture of a cathedral, wondering how they managed to create something so detailed on PS1 hardware. Vagrant Story wasn't just a game, it was a work of art that demanded patience and rewarded it with one of the most unforgettable experiences of the generation. Wild Arms blended the heart of a traditional JRPG with a unique Wild West-inspired world, making it one of the most distinctive adventures on the PS1. Released in 1996, it told the story of Rudy, Jack, and Cecilia, three unlikely heroes brought together to save the world of Filgaia from an ancient evil. The game opened with a fully animated intro and a whistling theme song that still stuck in my head after all these years. Its turn-based combat was familiar, but made unique by each character's special tools, which were used for both exploration and puzzles. The mix of dusty frontier towns, mystical ruins, and sweeping plains gave the game a flavor unlike the usual medieval fantasy. I still remember getting hopelessly lost in one of the first dungeons, and loving every second of trying to figure my way out. Wild Arms might not be as famous as other JRPGs of the era, but for me, it's pure PS1 magic. Xenogears was one of the most ambitious RPGs ever created on the PS1, blending deep philosophical themes, political intrigue, and giant mecha battles into a single epic. Released in 1998 by Square, it followed Fei-Fong Wong and his companions through a story that explored identity, faith, and the nature of existence itself. The combat system mixed traditional turn-based mechanics with fighting game-style combos, letting you chain special moves both on foot and inside massive gears. Yasunori Mitsuda's soundtrack was unforgettable, with music that could make you feel awe one moment and heartbreak the next. I still remember playing late into the night, completely absorbed, until I realized the sun was coming up outside my window. It was one of those games that made time disappear. Even with its famously rushed second disc, Xenogears remains a masterpiece, the kind of experience you think about long after the credits roll. Forbidden Memories brought the popular trading card franchise to the PS1 in a way that was both familiar and completely unique. Released in 1999, it set its story in ancient Egypt, tying the dual monsters concept to the series' mystical origins. Gameplay revolved around experimenting with card fusions directly in your hand, often discovering powerful combinations through trial and error. Duels were fast-paced and cinematic for the time, with monsters rendered in 3D when attacking. The game was notoriously challenging, with later opponents requiring perfectly tuned decks to stand a chance. Its distinctive fusion system, high difficulty, and atmospheric presentation made it a cult classic among fans, even if it strayed far from the real-life trading card rules. For many, Forbidden Memories was their first taste of Yu-Gi-Oh! In video game form, and it remains one of the most memorable adaptations on the PS1. Zoids: The Battle Begins was a Japan-exclusive title that brought the iconic mechanical animal franchise to the PS1. Released in the late 90s, it let players pilot fan-favorite Zoids like the Liger Zero and Shield Liger across various missions and combat scenarios. Gameplay blended third-person action with strategic elements, requiring careful movement, positioning, and weapon management during fast-paced battles. Each Zoid had distinct strengths and weaknesses, encouraging experimentation and mastery of different playstyles. The game's visuals faithfully captured the mechanical detail of the model kits, while dynamic battle animations and sound effects gave weight to every clash. Though it never made it to Western markets, Zoids: The Battle Begins became a hidden gem for import gamers and remains a standout adaptation of the franchise on the PS1. And that's my full list. One unforgettable game for every letter of the alphabet on the PS1. Some of these were huge hits, others were hidden gems I still think deserve more love. Now I'm curious, how many of these did you play? And more importantly, which game would you add to this list? Drop your pick in the comments. I might just include it in a future video. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.